Welcome into 11 Personnel presented by Monticello Bank. I'm Nick Roush, he's Adam Luckett, and I've been spending some time out by Monticello Bank because the PGA Championships this week in Luckett, the PGA Championship, they know good business. That's why the media shuttle is right across the street from Monticello Bank. I mean, there's locations everywhere, but the Monticello Bank headquarters right there, North Hurstbourne Lane, they've got convenient locations all over the state. We appreciate them being presenting sponsors of 11 Personnel, and we appreciate just all their work they've done over the last 125 plus years, making sure the numbers are on your side, because at Monticello Bank, it's where people matter. Visit them online at nbcbank.com, and remember, they'll bank wherever you go with the Go NBC mobile app. Monticello Bank, putting the people first. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Yes, I am rocking the Valhalla hat. It's an exciting time in the Bluegrass Luckett because we've got the best golfers in the world playing on Kentucky Bluegrass this week. It's exciting. It's exciting having the PGA Championship back in the city of Louisville.
First time in a decade, and it's probably going to be the last time that this event will be here. So, yeah, I think it's the end of an era in some ways, but definitely a fun major I think we're stepping into. And we'll get into this later, but Scotty Scheffler's coming in. He's like Michael Jordan right now of golf. I mean, he's just unbelievable. And then you got the live guys, but Brooke Koepka's been playing really well, and he's dominated this event throughout the years. Justin Thomas has labored a little bit, but this is always an event he typically plays well at. He's got 2 Wanamaker trophies, and it's going to be, I think, a fun week. And there's, the field's great. PGA Championship, I love the move. This used to be in August. They've moved it to May. They shifted things around in the schedule. I like having this event in May. It's a fun little major to have. These courses play a little tougher or have in May as opposed to when they were in August. And so I'm interested to see at Valhalla. It's been a birdie party at times out there. I believe Rory won this event at 16 under.
Correct.
10 years ago. And so I'm interested to see if it plays a little tougher this time around. And so it's going to be a fun weekend, and that it's in town makes things buzzing. Like, what Hooters is John Daly at this week, Nick? Like, is he at DuPont? Is he at Jeffersonville? Where is he at?
DuPont. Yeah.
To be a waiter at Jeff Ruby's this week, right? Like, you're seeing all kinds of people.
And you mentioned Rory too. He's won back-to-back events coming into this championship, and but
he's got the major drought.
It hasn't been a drought though around here as far as the rain. It should be soft, be easier to score. So we're going to talk PGA tonight. We're going to answer all of your questions too in a mailbag edition, and the people on KSR Plus have delivered. So we've got a lot of questions to get to there. We've also got Preakness Saturday, but we might as well just go ahead and start with the golf, because it is I've been able to be out there, and it's just I went to a Ryder Cup practice round when I was in high school, but actually it's just so weird being at a sporting event that covers so much area, so much space, where it's like, oh, well, they've got like a village over there, and there's this. It's just, yeah. It's like you ride in on Middletown Road from the shuttles, and you just see this sprawling event, and there's just so much going on. I will say, after I haven't walked the course by any means, and I'll be out there just a little bit on Thursday and Friday. We're doing radio shows out there, so I'll probably hang around and watch a couple golfers go through. But dude, being a spectator in golf is exhausting. Like, this isn't just like park your ass in a stadium or get up and yell. Like, you gotta work. Golf might be the one sport that is better for TV.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on the course you're at. Right? If you go to the Players, you're going to want to spend a lot of time at 17 at the Allen Green. Like, that's where everybody parties or hangs out.
Right.
But the good thing about that is, since everybody is kind of centrally located on that hole, you can go to other holes and really have great view, and you can follow golfers. Anyone probably outside of Tiger is easy to follow if you wanted to do that, and you can go see a lot. And that is, I think, the fun part of that. And then on like Friday or Saturday, if you go out there, it's very much like a party at these golf tournaments. People are just out, you're watching golf, you're following, but you're not following. It's more, it's kind of a social event as much as anything. And you're seeing people you don't see. Like, I remember going to the Players, I was like, oh, it's Jason Day. Right? He's right next to me. Like, and then of that, you see Justin Thomas, you see all these big guys that you watch every weekend. And so, yeah, but it's a different spectating experience. Now, you can do the old thing where you get a lawn chair or whatever and you just sit on a hole. Thing about Valhalla, it doesn't really have those kind of historic holes that some other venues have. And so, but yeah, I think it is different that you walk around and you can definitely walk around. And they have like booths there, Nick, where you can set up and get in a tent and you have a view of the whole, VIP view of the whole if you wanted to do it that way.
No, definitely. And there's, there's a couple, like I'm probably going to post up, I think it's 13 that has the exposed limestone that holds up the green. That's pretty cool. I'll probably hang out there. I've also just realized too, I can't be near a tee box because I don't know if I just can't see a ball off the tee at all. Not even my own. Like I hit it and I'm just like, I think it's over there. I'm not quite sure, but we were, Drew and I were walking around for a practice round and I'm just like, I don't know where he hit the ball. It's somewhere.
I can see it if I'm standing behind them, if I'm a little ways behind. But if I'm to the right or the left, or even not directly behind when you hit a tee, it's hard for I can't see it. Yeah, that's hard to on the tee box. It is hard. It's hard to follow, and then standing on the fairway is sometimes dangerous because you can get a shot go right or left, and you're like, oh, there he is. There's who hit that.
I was talking to a family friend who works for the PGA. This is his 5th major, so he kind of travels to site to help him get set up. And he said at the last, I guess he was at the U.S. Open at Brookline, and somebody just got pelted in the chest with a golf ball at a practice round. And he was like, the dude took it like a champ, and Scotty Scheffler, he comes up and gives him a couple gloves and signs some balls and says, here you go. And he's like, well, that's all it takes, hit me, Scotty, right here, right in the chest. But like you've got a full preview of before you get into details. The one thing I do like about the PGA compared to the other majors is it feels like it's the least quirky of them all. And I like that in a good way. Whereas like the U.S. Open, they're just like, how are we going to make this course impossible to play? Where it's just not even real golf anymore. Augusta, the Masters is the Masters, right? Like if you're a great ball striker and you're good around the greens, even the most average Joe who can't get off the tee has a chance to win there. Link style golf is completely different over in Europe. Like you got to hit it in different spots. It's not how we're used to playing golf. Or the PGA is really, I think it's honest for professional golfers that we're used to seeing. And when I was listening to Max Homa talk, it's like, everybody's using like most of the same clubs for all of their shots. So it's not like one guy can just go big off a driver. And there's like these handful of guys that can just like gain strokes off the tee because they just hit so much harder or whatever, and they can separate themselves. Usually there's a pretty, a competitive leaderboard at the top. Now, Scotty Scheffler may just say, screw that, I'm just going to beat the brakes out of all of y'all. But, I mean, Justin Thomas's last one, that was 3 guys going down to the 72nd hole, and Mito Pereira had to just absolutely choke it. And we still got a playoff where Thomas beat Zalatoris. Like, you have some very exciting Sundays, and I feel like we haven't gotten a ton of those as of late, and it'd be awesome to have that in Louisville on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the thing with the PGA Championship is you've seen birdie parties, but you've also seen like winners have to grind. Like JT's last win, I believe that was 5 or 6 under that he won at, and they went to a playoff. Where the Masters, it typically plays, if the weather's nice, you know how it's going to play, and you know how the U.S. Open is typically just going to be a war of attrition, and then British is always, but that's just a different style of golf. To me, PGA is basically it's the modern players' major championship. Like typically, if you get up there with your driver and you can hit the big stick a long way and you can keep it somewhere straight, you're going to score here and you're going to be in contention. And that's why you've seen Brooks Koepka win 3 of these.
Tiger had a funny line. He's like, "It's not bad if you just stay out of the rough." And I'm like, dude, I tell myself all the time, golf ain't that hard if you just keep it out of the rough, Yeah. Just hit it straight, right? How hard is that?
Yeah, but this one, I mean, it's not like the tournaments we've seen up in New York where it's just like ridiculous. Beth Page and some other courses we've seen. You're going to be able to score here. And I think the winner is going to have double digit under par. And so
my tiebreaker was like 16 under. I went a little crazy like it. I'm thinking they're going to score low. The wet green's nice and soft. There's a little bit of rain in the forecast on Friday. It rained Tuesday, Wednesday. So especially that front. That front just kind of sits in a lowland by Floyd's Fork. So I will say, if you're going out to the course, a lot more shade on the back nine and the front. The front's a little bit more open, and the back's more of like you're kind of in the woods, right? Because Kentucky is kind of we're kind of in a rainforest off of Ohio River Basin. So and I just think it's a little more scenic there. And there's a hill too. I don't know if you're going to be able to get it, but there's a hill that's between 18 green, 13 tee box, and 10 tee box. If you can, that's going to be prime real estate to kind of be in the mix by the clubhouse. That's a nice spot. And there's also, I want to say it's like 13 green, and they're like where the 13th green. There's a couple other spots over there where 3 holes converge. Those are going to be some good spots to kind of post up and people watch for a while. Look at the beers are not cheap. I believe a Mick Ultra is like $14, $15 for a fancy beer, and then $16 for cocktails. So the Nick Roush method would be to get the $16 cocktails, but bring in a flask to make those cocktails stronger. So that's your drinking advice. The shuttles too, the media one's different than the regular one. I don't think getting out there is going to be a problem. Like it's going to be the getting back. We're trying to time that out. Like you're going halfway across town from the fairgrounds, so like hopping on a shuttle at Friday at 4:00. Like you either leave early or you leave late. Like trying to get in the middle of rush hour, it's going to take you an hour. it's going to be a while. There's going to be a long line, so trying to time that out. That should plan ahead in that regard.
That's just about any golf tournament you're going to. It's not like these places have big parking lots.
Yeah,
it's not like going to the stadium or going downtown where there's parking infrastructure. It's definitely a little different from that aspect if you're going to compare it to any other major sporting event.
Correct. But I'm curious, like it. Who are you liking in this event? I have my pick that I'm going to bet, but I'm not feeling great about, but I just can't get off it. Like the day I quit betting Xander Schauffele in an event like this is the day he wins it. So like, he's third choice, and it's not the best of. It's still like 14-1 or something. So I'm gonna have to win bet it, and I'm probably gonna have to win bet Scotty Scheffler. Like not huge, but like, come on. I know he's only like 4-1, but still, it's 4-1 odds. I mean, it's not great for golf, but it's great compared to most sports bets you're gonna make.
Yeah, the Valhalla's par 71. It's going to play over 7,500 yards, so like it's a steep course here.
You got to hit it almost 300 yards to carry to the fairway on some of these holes.
Again, the big stick. The driver is going to be super important this week. So whoever can hit that and then get on the green and then just give themselves birdie chances, because they're going to be makeable putts here. Just give yourself a chance at them. And so, like, to me, I'm looking at strokes gained, tee to green. Is my number one metric this week. Xander Schauffele, Hideki Matsuyama, Ziwoo Kim, Keith Mitchell are some guys in the top 10 that you could probably get decent odds on in certain plays. Matsuyama, Nick, is someone I would really like this week, but he's got a back injury. He pulled out last week, so I don't really know his status. So I'm going to be staying away from him this week. But he's like to win. Like it's boring, but like Scheffler is not a bad bet here. Like he's 4-1 odds, and you're never gonna bet him and feel stupid when you're watching the tournament.
That's a great point. You're not gonna feel like, oh no, my Scotty Scheffler ticket in bet. Like it's never a bad bet. You can't feel dumb when you miss out on this bet.
Yeah, so I'm
just not making it, and he went.
Yeah, so I don't like if you got a little extra spare change, just sprinkle it. Now I know people don't want to bet that, but I mean, if you're going to look for two others like Rory McIlroy plus 750, and then Brooks Koepka at this tournament, it's always worth a sprinkle, 16-1. Those are the two. Those are the three that I would consider placing a win bet on. Those three right there. I think the winner here is going to be one of the better golfers. So it's going to come from a select group. So those three I like the best. Probably my favorite play this week is Ludwig Aberg, top 10. at plus 160. This guy, Nick, he's going to be a Ryder Cup nightmare for America for the next decade plus. He's 24 years old. This is only his second year on tour. He won the European Masters last year in 2023. He won a couple of matches in the Ryder Cup. He's logged top 10 finishes at both the Masters and the Players this season. He owns 5 top 10 finishes in his last 8 starts. He's in the top 15 in strokes gained tee to green this week. Like, this guy is an absolute stud. Yeah, he's an absolute stud. He's going to be like, he's got potential to be like a legitimate top 5 player in the world here fairly very soon. And like, even him to win at 22-1, like, he fits the profile of a guy I think can win this tournament. So a top 10, and he like most of his fit starts are top 10s, and he's played well at the 2 big tournaments so far this year, in the Masters and the Players. And he's played well in the Ryder Cup. So big stages, he plays well. Top 10 at plus 160. I like it a lot, and I think he's got a real chance to win it even at 22-1.
He also, I learned, he has a twin brother who's playing in the event as well, Rasmus. We were like, wait, there's no way there's 2 of them, right? And it's like, no, yeah, there is. And they're like, they can't be brothers. Like, oh, actually, they're twins. So that's kind of cool, kind of neat to have twin brothers playing in the same major championship. I'll certainly be keeping an eye on that tonight and logging those wagers, Mr. Luckett. But we've spent 15 minutes on golf. That's 15 more minutes than most of our fans would like to hear. This is a football podcast. We appreciate you bearing with us, but the biggest sporting event in the world is in our town this week. We're not good golfers. We like to pretend we are. So it's a little fun to chat some golf. But we did have some news come out today, Luckett. I would say cue the music, but I don't know what the music is. Kentucky is kicking off the season with SEC on ABC coming to Kroger Field. And it feels weird. It's unusual, but to see Kentucky getting network TV games in its first 2 SEC games, the Cats will host South Carolina in week 2 at that traditional SEC on CBS time slot at 3:30, and then the following week get Georgia in prime time at 7:30. I think ESPN's going to be making the 7:30 their big game instead of the afternoon like CBS did. And it's also different too now that the SEC, like, it's not like there's just one of these games a week. There's going to be at least 2, and hell, maybe even 3 sometimes that they put. But being on broadcast TV is huge, and I know that we're living in a world where we've got NFL games on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Peacock, but being on one of the big sticks still matters for viewership. Like, you look at the bowl ratings, the Citrus Bowl is one of the highest rated games because it's on ABC, right? Like, these games carry a lot of weight. And to open SEC play with what we've discussed in the last 2 weeks, like, that's one of your biggest games of the year. It's going to be a 3:30 kick. Dude, Kroger Field's going to be rocking. There's going to be some pissed off people with Shane Beamer coming to town. Like, we're going to be juiced up for it. And the fact that Kroger Field's getting that treatment right off the bat, like, I know we don't have Southern Miss kickoff times yet and everything, but that's awesome. That's going to be a hot smoking Saturday with a fired up Kroger Field crowd.
Yeah, I think that was just one, Nick. These teams play that at 7:30 SEC Network game, Kentucky, South Carolina.
like every year.
Essentially half my life. I mean, like 15 years now. That's just what they've been. It's the first time this would be a day game since 2009, this series. Like, it's been a long time. And that was the first big takeaway to me. It was like, whoa, this is going to be different now with just the scheduling variety with ESPN and ABC. And Greg Sankey said this, there's even going to be games that they're going to let fan bases know more than the 13 days in advance like we've done in the past. So that is going.
They'll do it like July 4th, or they'll have like a random, like, we haven't been in the news enough, so let's go ahead and throw the fans some bones here and give them, like, halfway through October, we'll go ahead and give them the schedule, sort of deal.
Yeah, so that's going to be, I think, a nice development for everyone. And it's just going to be different. They just have so many windows to fill, right? Mm-hmm. With the SEC network channels, ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, and now the Big Ten is not involved at all with ESPN. And the Pac-12 is not even a thing anymore. They have inventory to fill. And so I think that's going to be a good sign for all of these SEC teams. And then even the noon thing, right? You're not going to make more than 2 noon home games. That's kind of a shot at Fox. I think if you ask Oklahoma and Texas, that was one. Oklahoma specifically, I think that was a big reason, but like they didn't really love that.
Because
they were every big home game was the noon, and
they already are locked into that time for Red River too. And that was a game that was always on ABC, but still, like that's guaranteeing maybe 3 or 4 games at noon a year. So I'm fired up about it. I didn't love the logo, the shield that they made, because it was just real boring. Like, and it felt like the ABC was real tight. It's just like, what's all this empty space here? So I'm hoping we get a good jingle out of it.
They need to just bring back you remember the old ABC college football jingle?
I don't remember that one, but the one that
it was like dun 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 dun. I had this is like this is like Vince Young era, right? This is like when I was in high school, early college.
All right, but was it the same that they would play for like normal college football, like on ESPN? That was like a marching band. And
no, they had ABC had their own one.
Okay, and I like the regular ESPN one, but they've like gone away from it. That like marching band. This is, probably like 2015, the area you're talking about, like 2015, where I imagine them using that sound going into Reese Davis with.
You're talking the da 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 da. You talking that jingle?
Yeah, that one. Yes.
Yes.
That one.
Yeah.
And then you go and you have Lou Holtz spitting all over the microphone at what's his name?
Mark May. That takes me back to college. Like that was my college era. Was those two. Just a bunch of nonsense, but yes.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a change of pace for all Kentucky fans. That was in the news this week. We got a Martell's Carter commitment date for, I don't know, what was that, next week, and it's probably going to be
Memorial Day Saturday.
Yeah, probably going to be Kentucky, but that's a recruitment that's going to last long, and similar to Cameron Miller, the New Jersey receiver, announced a commitment to Wisconsin today. But I think that's going to be a recruitment that's going to last for a while, and I think Kentucky's going to remain in the mix there. So a little bit of recruiting nuggets. Oh, and Kentucky got a punter. They got a new punter, which that's like, I don't know how much we can break down Kentucky getting a new punter right now, but we could look back in October and be like, thank God they got a punter.
Yeah, I think the Martell's Carter, what I've kind of stressed to folks on KS Board, and I wrote about today in a recruiting notebook, he's making the decision, but that recruitment's not over. Like, that thing is going to December. I think just prepare yourself for that. In Auburn, Kentucky has a good track record in some of these big battles head-to-head against Auburn. Now, much of this is before the Hugh Freeze era, but Auburn made a big push for Willie Rodriguez here this last cycle to try to get him, and Kentucky was able to hold on. And I believe Tennessee was also in there making a push for Willie Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. So, like, Kentucky's got a good track record. You know, John Summerall got a lot of those wins when he was here. Mm-hmm. When you look at Kobe Albert, Trevin Wallace, but there's been some other ones that have gone Kentucky's way. Devin Leary, like Auburn was Hugh Freeze and them were heavily involved for Devin Leary. And so we'll see how this all shakes out. But like recent track record, Kentucky has gotten some wins against Auburn for some key targets. And so again, we'll just have to see how it plays out. But this is going to be a big boy recruitment, and even Colorado there is lurking around. He's got the relationship with Martell's Carter. So that's going to be one to watch. Like, what happens with Colorado this year, right? Like, what is Deion Sanders going to be back without Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter? That's something I'm kind of skeptical of. But we'll see how that all plays out. And then Cameron Miller, this is the first, like, to kill shorts, like a guy you thought he was going to get and he didn't get, at least right now.
Yeah.
And so you have to see how that plays out. That's really hard to handicap because you just got to see what receivers they end up getting. DJ Miller is another guy they're in on, a guy from St. Louis, a force kind of ranked similar to Miller. It's more of an outside receiver. Kentucky and Ole Miss seem like the top two contenders there. But Miller was a guy we thought, like 2 months ago, was a heavy Kentucky lean, or going that way at least.
it's also one of those two where in his quotes he was talking about Phil Longo and their high-powered offense. And it's like, well, that's Phil Longo in North Carolina. That's not Phil Longo at Wisconsin. Similar with Kentucky too. Like you've got a couple of coordinators who will have to show kind of a proof of concept in the SEC, which I'm interested to see. But I don't want to wait any longer because we've got some great questions in the KSR mailbag that was over on KSR Plus. If you're not on KSR Plus right now, head on over there. And we've got a special offer for all of our viewers, $1 for 2 months. You don't get that everywhere. This is the special KSR YouTube channel offer, $1 for 2 months when you sign up with code UK1. That'll get you through the summer recruiting months where we'll be at camps, where official visits will be happening. There's going to be a lot of intel being shared on KS Board. It's been popping throughout Mark Pope's roster build, and we're going to have plenty more in the months to come. So please get on there now and make sure you're a part of mailbag episodes like this. Promo code UK1 to sign up. $1 for 2 months at KSR Plus. And like it, sometimes I try to grab like just a few here and there, but they're so good. I'm just going to start from the top, which first and foremost, somebody's like, do we actually believe the BVG could be in the Heisman talks? And if he is, could we see him off this year? Like those are summer, like off-season hot takes. I don't think your take from a year ago could like that like, hey, we don't know who like the pecking order of quarterbacks in the SEC. I mean, there's a chance where Brock is the third or fourth best quarterback in the SEC, right? Like you know Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers are going to be up there and Jackson Dart. But
yeah, I just think on paper though it's in a better situation. Like the quarterback situation is better, much improved than what it was last year. But yeah.
And like, so that's kind of hyperbole out there stuff. But I am jumping ahead here to one question because it's related. And I think this is one that does serve for quite a bit of fodder. We talked last year a lot about the 3,000-yard drought.
Right.
With this set of receivers, this set of pass catchers, an experienced offensive line, could BVG do it? Can Brock get that 3,000-yard threshold?
I think one of my bigger working hot takes for Kentucky, and I'm going to say this with fully admitting first, Nick, I have no idea what this offense is going to look like. I don't really know what the ceiling is. I don't really know what the floor is. The only thing I really know is that they're going to be more college football modern. They're going to be more spread sets. And they're probably not going to be huddling, and they're going to get plays in faster. Other than that, I really don't know like what they're going to really look like. But I keep coming back to just kind of the whole conversation around the team. And the whole conversation around this offense is about running the football. running the football, running the football, running the football. And then even the dialogue around the quarterback position and running the football there. In a lot of ways, my hunch and my bold prediction is going to be they're getting back to their roots on offense, which is going to be run first. We're running the football. We're going to go like this pro style stuff back to what we did with somewhat with Grand, where we spread it out and had a lot of success running it on people that way. And with the QB tagged with that, we're going to create more manageable situations where in the last 2 years, like they're playing in such condensed formations, they played against so many heavy boxes.
Yeah.
That it was more difficult. So they're gonna spread it out really to run it to me. And so I don't really know. Like, what do the pass numbers look like? I'm not saying they're gonna run it 60 times a game, but I think they're gonna be kind of a run first operation. And then I don't know if that's gonna lead to a 3,000-yard passer. My bet would be no against that.
So the reason why I think it is a possibility is because they didn't add a Penny Boone to the fold. And I don't know how confident they are in rushing with two backs back there. Like how much do they trust somebody not named Chip Traynham, right? And
yeah,
and to top it all off, a lot of people some people got hot and bothered when Bush Hamden told Brock to be a boring quarterback out there. Thing is if you're a boring quarterback, Jamari Macklin and Barron Brown those guys can turn boring plays into explosive plays. Those are
Right.
like, here's a slant that goes 60 yards. So while I do think, if you're setting the odds, the answer, yes to 3,000 plus yards would probably be like plus 250. But I do think that there is a chance that could happen. I do think that it's out there. Although I tend to agree with you that much of their focus is going to be getting the run first, and then the passing kind of production comes out of that. Like, that's almost like a byproduct of it. But they have so many big play guys that it might just come easier than it's. I mean, they've labored over passing for so long that it just might come a little bit easier this year when you have payday years for a bunch of guys in that room.
Yeah, that's a valid point. But again, back to just my overall thought, it's hard for me to kind of handicap this offense because I don't really know what they're going to look like or what they're going to try to do. And this is the first time I've really felt like this, I would say, since probably like going into the 2019 season with Terry Wilson when you lost Benny and you didn't have the bell cow running back and you were going to try to like turn it over more to the quarterback. Like, so what does that look like? Every other year I've kind of had a good, decent feeling about what it would be. This year's different. I really don't know what it's going to look like here. But the one thing I think I do know is what they're going to do, like just alignment wise, and they're going to run the quarterback. That's going to be a big part of the offense. And then what is like the secondary effects of that? What does that kind of open up for everybody else? But yeah, they've got the players, and you're right about the contract year stuff. That's a big, I think, thing we should not forget.
Yeah.
When handicapping this season, like it's go time for both Barry Brown and Dane Key. Like like they want to be both. If you got them on True Serum, I think they both tell you they want to be 3 and done, so they want to go to the draft after this year. But they need big seasons to get there.
Exactly. Let's shift to the other side of the ball where LG 1821 asks, with the amount of production we'll lose on defense next year, which players do you think will be necessary to see growth from this year to feel good about going into 2025? Which this is right in our wheelhouse, Luckett, because it's like some 3-level thinking. And it is very important because scanning across the defensive line, the linebacking core, they're losing a ton of guys after this year.
Yeah.
A lot of it's just because they're going to be out of eligibility. And I think I would start with Grant Godfrey because he might have to be your guy calling the defense. He might have to have a mic in there. And he was playing a different position going into spring practice. Now, I believe last year, part of that, like he redshirted because of injury. Like he didn't what exactly it was, but I know he wasn't even practicing a lot because of some unspecified injury. But that's one where he has the recruiting ranking, the athleticism, the intangibles, and in an ideal scenario, like in the old Jamin Davis days, like you're not throwing him directly into the fire, but it'll also be year 3 by then. So how they work him in when you've got so much talent and experience there, I don't know. But that's one of those guys that they are going to have to rely on heavily in 2025, and he's got to use this redshirt freshman season to really be game ready right away.
He's a really good one. That's a good pick. To me, like defensive line wise, it could turn over in a big way after this season. So 2 guys like Khalil Saunders and Tavian Gatson. Like, do you see enough from them where you would feel good about them stepping into starting roles after this year? Like those would be 2 guys. Even a Keyshawn Silver, could you see him maybe hitting another level, maybe to become maybe like a borderline star or all SEC player? So those would be 3 to watch because I think defensive line on paper is a huge strength for Kentucky entering this season. So those would be 2. Tyrese Fearbry, Nick.
That was the one I was going to get to as well. Yeah, that I was going to kind of tag it because Drew asked too. He was like, "Who's the impact? Who's the guy that we aren't talking about enough? That's kind of could be a potential impact player." That's him.
If you were to pick who would be this year's Maxwell Hairston, who would be the guy who didn't really play a role last year, who just gets inserted in the lineup it made the all SEC team, he would be a draft pick the year after that.
Yeah.
He would be my pick on this roster. Go watch the Clemson tape. Like, you see it all in that tape. From a pass rushing standpoint, there is still he still needs to get stronger. He still needs to tackle better. There was one missed tackle he had as a drop defender that set up, which would have been a 4th and 6, 4th and 4, and they end up moving the chains, or they end up creating a 4th and 1, something like that. But the twitch and the bend and the get off and the burst as an edge rusher is something we haven't really seen this program have in like a half decade. And like, you could see it all there. And it's another year of development for him. And he was a bona fide top 200 prospect that Kentucky beat Penn State out for.
Right.
Like, he had the pedigree, and now he's starting.
They get some good edges at Penn State.
But he had to grow into his body, and now that process is starting. It's year 3. Like, that's the guy. And to me, like, he could be the guy that unlocks all of this for the defense. Like, Deion Walker is a star, and he's going to get a lot of attention. And the front 7 in general, like Kentucky's front 7, like, there's a lot of reasons to believe it's going to be one of the better ones in the SEC. But Fierby, like, gets them to another level if he can provide that edge pass rushing juice. Because if you have him to worry about, plus Walker, who you're moving around all over the place, like, that's going to create a lot of problems for offensive lines, especially against the defensive front. This probably should be pretty good against stopping the run. So you're going to create advantageous pass rushing situations if you do that. So to me, like, he's one of the biggest X factors on this football team.
I've got a story coming out later this week on him where, you know, you bank some of those quotes you get in spring football for slower times of the year like now. But the way Gerald Mincey put it too, you know, it was a little bit different from him because at Tennessee, everything was so fast that they couldn't really try things. But he's like, you know, it's just, he's like, I'm having to block so much more than I ever had to block before. So many different moves. And Fierby's one of those guys who, you know, he's not just going to try to bull rush you, right? Or he's not going to just try to like, he has a full arsenal of moves. And he also studies it too. Like, Mincey's like, yeah, like, he kind of knows, he knows what I am a little bit weaker at. So he's going to attack me there. Tyrese Fierby is an exciting potential wrinkle. And he's the one guy on that 2 deep, right? The depth chart, we had after spring practice, when you look through that defensive side, it's redshirt junior, redshirt junior, redshirt senior, super senior, redshirt. There's 2 guys that don't have a junior or senior next to their name, and one of them is redshirt sophomore, Tyrese Fierby, and the other one is Ty Bryant. So I think Fierby's going to play a huge role in it. And in the thread on KSR Plus, Hank Bramblett, who did a great job helping us out with Listicuffs, he hosts a show with us, longtime fan. And he said, will this be the year we actually have an effective pass rush? And I was like, I mean, Kentucky finished 5th in the SEC in sacks. It's pretty good. And then he reminded me, well, we had 9 against Clemson, which I totally memory hold that like it. I remember getting after Cade Klubnik. I didn't remember that many sacks. But I think, I mean, you do have to go back to Boogie Watson. And I don't think Boogie had the kind of next level stuff that Fierby does. Boogie benefited a lot from being in the same defensive line as Josh Allen, and when he was rushing the passer by himself, you know, he wasn't nearly as effective. So having a guy like Fierby to complement, because like that could help out JJ a lot too. You know, like, I mean, you're right when talking about just what he could unlock for this pass rush.
Nick, I think the pass rush was better than people really want to admit last year. They had a multi-sack game in the SEC against Florida, against Missouri, against Tennessee, had 5 against Mississippi State, and against South Carolina, and then ended the year with 2 multi-sack games against Louisville and Clemson. Like,
like it was much better, and
but
I think we're kind of warped by Josh Allen.
They don't have the pretty edge rushers. They don't have the guy who's winning off the edge.
True. Yeah.
That's what people want to see, right? When people talk about lack of pass rush, that is what they're talking about.
That's true.
Where's the Josh Allen? Essentially,
the Octavius Oxendown 3 technique sacks aren't as sexy as the Josh Allen sacks.
So, like, JJ Weaver gets a lot of criticism in this pass rush dialogue arena. that's because of his position and what people think he should be doing, right? That's not a strength of his. They haven't had a guy that can really can be a bendy edge rusher and beat people off the edge. They haven't had that. Boogie Watson could do it some, but I think Fearbury, just from that aspect of getting bendy and rushing the passer, he's the best prospect they've had, I think, since Allen, of doing that, of the potential. And then they're recruiting a guy out of Dayton and Cedric Works that's kind of the same mold. That's a really important target here for Kentucky in this recruiting class right now. But I think it just unlocks a lot of things, I think, for this defense. Because yes, anybody that watches it know there's times where the rush just gets eaten up.
Yeah.
And then they got a big pop early in the year from some of their creepers and situational blitzes or situational pressures with Trevin Wallace. But once teams kind of figured that out, it kind of dried up. But then again, Deion Walker was top 5, I believe, in the SEC in pressures last year. He's a bull in a china shop up there. So it wasn't like they were getting no pressure. It was just different here because they haven't had the true edge rusher. And I think that's part of the reason it's so frustrating, because you do have that bull in a china shop with Walker that can do a lot of different things. Can we just get a consistent guy who can win on the edge, and then the sacks should really come if that happens.
And the other problem too is you focus more on the pass rush when the pass coverage isn't good, and the pass coverage wasn't good last year. It was very uncharacteristic of the Stoops era. So in a lot of those third down situations, it was well, you either get a sack or they're going to move the chains on 3rd and 9. I mean, how bad was the third down defense? I mean, the numbers were abhorrent. So I think that plays a role in it as well. But it should be one of the best in the Stoops era if Tyrese Fearbury can get it going. Bungle Joey wants to know if anybody's deserved a cool nickname. We've got the ass kicker who was putting on some moves at the Dancing with the Stars.
I saw that.
That was he was rocking it too. It was very popular at Derby. When did wearing a wife beater underneath a blazer become a thing? That sounds like something that Dixie Highway people would try to pull off, and they would be considered trash. But now it's high class, and Josh Caddis is wearing it to Dancing with the Stars. I don't understand it. Maybe I should wear it to the wedding I got to go to this weekend.
I mean, just imagine someone telling you in 2009, Nick, that you could just wear Nikes, Air Maxes with a suit's fine, accepted today. That to me is just it's crazy.
That is crazy.
I think about that. When Baker goes to St. X or kids his age start going to St., they're probably going to be wearing Nikes to school. That was never would have flew back then. But I know I sound like old man. But fashion. I say this all the time with fashion, Nick. Your fashion sets in when you're in college, and what you wear then and what you settle into is what you wear the rest of your life. So when you're 21, 22, 23, that's what you wear. So me, I wear golf polos, I wear hats, I wear khaki shorts, I wear jeans, Nikes, and I'll mix in cowboy boots. And that's what Adam Luckett wears, and that's what he will wear probably until he dies. And that's just what your fashion is. So, anything after when I'm 23, 24 that's in, that I see people wearing, I'm not doing that. Just give me my Under Armour polo, give me those khaki shorts, and give me the Air Maxes, and let's go. Let's go have a good time. So, I don't even know what to say when you ask me that. Sure, yeah. Guess it's in.
Oh man, I learned a lot of it about Derby because there's a group of people that run in the same circles that's all. It was all the rage. It was all the rage. I do have one bit of fashion too, though, that fits your model that could help our quarterback, belt clip Brock. He rocks the belt the foam clip on the belt clip with his tucked in shirt and his blue jeans. Brock Vandagriff, he ain't changing his fashion at all. And I think that's a good way to give our quarterback a nickname. Even though BVG works great, belt clip Brock, man, that you trust that guy. You trust that guy in the pocket. You trust that guy no matter what. Because he doesn't have time to get something out of his pocket. He's got his phone ready to roll on his belt clip.
Yeah, I think he's a perfect example. He just figured it out. Did Brock Vandagriff dress like that when he was 16 and trying to figure out his style? No. Probably. But sometime when he was 21, 22 and says, you know what I like to do? I like to fish. I like to hunt. I'm going to just dress like this because this is what I'm most comfortable. So this is what I'm going to wear. And so he'll be wearing that the rest of his life. That is just my personal. I just think everyone, like when you're about the first couple years out of college, you kind of figure out, like, all right, this is what I like.
Yeah,
and then you just don't want to change.
Because we had the baggy clothes were very popular in high school. Then I joined a frat. You get the real frat clothes, and then like I found a happy medium. Right, cargo shorts, totally cool, totally kosher. That you get that happy medium, and that's where I'm at right now. That's why I've got a full lineup of hats and golf polos. Big hat cow over here, and I needed one more out of the 40 I already have. You can never have too many hats. It's accessory, changes every kind of outfit. You never have too many questions in the KSR mailbag on KSR Plus. Remember, UK1, 2 months for $1. Try us out. What would you set the line for number of years Stoops is the head coach after the season? Oh, that was from Steph. That's a tough question. That's a real tough question.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Did you know that this year
he's 56?
Same age when Bob retired, correct? I thought I heard that stat somewhere.
Yeah, I was around that age.
Yeah. So this will be year 12.
He turns 57 in July.
Is this year 12 or year 11?
Yes, it's year 12.
I mean, it's hard to imagine beyond 2 years after 2024. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think I would set it at 2.5.
Right.
If I had to set the line.
Yeah, but I think most people would go under. Yeah, it's just.
I don't know. It's hard to handicap because, when does Stoops, what is the situation where he would like to hang it up? Right? Like, what is the situation?
Because, you could very well see them going. I mean, I don't think either of us would be shocked if they pulled off another 9-3 this year. I know the schedule's tough, but you hit your ceiling, you win every game at home except Georgia, you beat Florida, and then you upset Ole Miss or something like that, or maybe Texas just pisses down their leg. I know, but how it's usually like every other year for Texas. It has been.
No, you would have to beat Auburn and Florida, plus the 4 non-cons. Vandy, that gets you to 7. And then you would have to pull
South Carolina at home.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's 8. And then the other one would be if you just upset, if Ole Miss or Tennessee.
Yeah. So
if one of them just fell off, and then then your losses are Texas, Georgia, and one of Ole Miss, Tennessee.
Because that wouldn't be. I know some people might say you're sunshine pumpers, but that's a scenario you can envision.
This schedule is very similar to 2021. In that year, it just opened up for Kentucky.
Right.
If you remember heading into that season, having Florida and Georgia and LSU on the schedule was that was 3 top 10 teams.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh man, this is a pretty tough ass schedule." But it ended up not being because those 2 teams blew up. Now I'm not saying any of the teams in the top 10 this year, Ole Miss, Texas, Georgia, are gonna blow up, but it wasn't that much different than that, and that's why you can't get too far ahead of it. You just have to see how the thing plays out.
And that's
you just never really know.
If that does open up like that, and Kentucky goes 9-3, if they're not in the playoff, they're in the biggest bowl outside of the playoff. I don't know what that is anymore, but that with all of these seniors that we just mentioned on the defensive side of the ball, with everything.
Yeah, you're in Tampa.
You could see Stoops being like, all right, this was a great last ride. I'm going to pass it off to Summerall.
What if Vandagriff's let's say Vandagriff's legit good, right? And he's probably going to be a draft pick, and he's coming back next year. I don't think he wants to hang it up.
But if he's 9-3 and he's so good that he goes to what if he's 9-3 and so good he goes to the draft?
Yeah, I mean that would be the situation.
Right.
I just you would have to really get inside Stoops' mind and feel what does he want? Is he what is he looking for? Because I think I think for him to have one of his guys take it over would be kind of a big deal. To continue, let's just say this was the year he retires and then Summerall comes in, and
he'd probably keep most of the band together. I bet Vince would want to stay.
You've got to, yeah, right.
I bet a lot of those guys would. Vince, Brad, I bet a lot of dudes would stick around.
you've got a Stoops guy handling or running the, and then he's just like built this program, essentially.
Because
That's
I
his
think
program.
that's probably the ideal exit for him if it's not go to Iowa, but I think that ship, like I think any other going someplace ship might have sailed already. I mean, never say never.
How long does he want to coach? That's the big like. What is the timestamp on this?
Because he enjoys his life right now, and like I know he enjoys that going to that beach house for the golf too. Like it's
my theory was if he's willing to take that A&M job and take that leap, I think he could see him coaching for at least 5 to 7 years if it was going good. Like if you're willing to do that leap for A&M, I think you're at least planning to work 5 more, at least bare minimum 5 more years.
That's true.
So that's why I would set it at 2.5, but I would bet the over. The reason I would see him retiring potentially is if it got really stale, essentially.
Which
if a couple more 7 and 5s, then it might be like a thing where let's just this isn't going great. Let me just step away when
another
the
loss to
reputation's
Shane
so good.
Beamer, he looked exasperated after that loss at South Carolina, and that 7 and 5 scenario is very much again on the table this year. So
but every 7 and 5, I'll say, you're going to have a faction of the fan base that's going to raise hell about it. But every 7 and 5 is different.
That's true.
Every 7 and 5 is different. So it depends on who you beat and how you beat them, and then what you have, like what kind of momentum you have going into the next season, and then what you do in the bowl game. Like I think there would be a lot more optimism for this team if the Stoops A&M dilly-dally didn't take place, and then they beat Clemson in the Gator Bowl. People would feel a lot different about this season. And now it's a little kind of – it's a weird, like, gray area, I would say. But I still think people are excited. Like, they're still going to sell a bunch of season tickets, and those games are going to be packed. So – but there's definitely a feel of, like, where is this going? And, like, where's the arrow really trending? Because it kind of feels like the arrow's doing, like, slowly doing this. Can you get it back? Can they find it and get it back going the other way? And we'll see if they can do that this year. But, my advice would be win some home games, and I think everybody would get a lot happier. Like, beat Auburn at home. Beat South Carolina at home. Beat Louisville at home. I think that would get the juices flowing in Big Blue Nation if you could just go and do that.
The guy in the chat says Vince would follow Stoops, wouldn't he? Vince will stay at Kentucky as long as he can because Vince will never be more valuable as a non-assistant coach than he is at Kentucky. Maybe at a Michigan school, perhaps. But
when did your mind get to that place?
With
like
Vince?
when did you? Yeah.
It's been there for a couple of years now, but the Texas A&M stuff made it very clear, right? Like, because it's like, what does Texas A&M need him for? Like, they don't, because, and it's also, he's in a very strange spot too, where it's rare to have a second in command who's so popular that's a non-play caller, right? Like, that's
you would have to stay at a school as long as he has and be like this big public face.
Yeah,
and he wouldn't get that anywhere, almost anywhere else.
Like that's
not just like in his career. Yeah,
no, it's so unique to college football because that does happen a lot of times where the offense coordinator becomes more popular than the head coach or vice versa.
Phil Parker at Iowa.
Yeah, there's times where that happens, but not for a guy in a position like Vince that isn't in play calling duties. It's because he is kind of the personality. He's the yin, Stoops is yang, but he only has the similar power if he's recruiting in this footprint.
You see that happen sometimes, Nick, in college football, like lifers that stay at one school.
Bud Foster.
Bill Bedenbaugh, Oklahoma offensive line coach, just stayed through every coach.
Like, was the defensive line coach at LSU?
Mac Jenkins was who else I was going to mention. Yeah. And so you do see some of that. So maybe that's what he will be. Now Vince is, how long does he want to do it, right? He's a couple years older than Stoops, I think. So how long does he want to do that? But yeah, I mean, you could keep that, again, you could keep that kind of Stoops train rolling, right?
Exactly.
If you brought Summerall in or hire someone off the tree, maybe, potentially, and have Merrill be kind of again, they're like number 2.
It's very rare too that an assistant football coach is like he probably has the best relationship with the biggest boosters in for the entire program.
It's a unique, it's a unique dynamic. Yeah.
And Kentucky's in a good spot for it. All right, couple quick hitters. Satchel wanted to know, we had 8 D linemen out for the spring game. Do we have any updates? No updates whatsoever.
That is one of the bigger enigmas, I think, surrounding the team. I just don't know.
Although
we probably won't know anything. We won't know anything. We'll find out something at Media Day in August for Kentucky.
Pretty sure that Josiah Hayes is the one that is out for the year. That's just our guess, though.
My guess is Stoops dances around this in Dallas at SEC Media Days. And then that Friday when they have Kentucky Media Day, he'll make a statement.
Yeah.
That would be my guess about what happens, about where they're at.
And the way they approached it too, it's kind of like they pursued some guys, but like they weren't willing to really go all in. I don't think like did JVR Suggs, he was supposed to announce like right around now.
He committed to LSU.
He did commit to LSU. So yeah. I think they'll be good. That's just my inclination. I think they'll be fine. And I think some of those guys were out. They were out because Kentucky was like, why are we playing these guys? Like Deion's not playing in spring game, stuff like that.
Nick, there's some conversation. I just want to say this. Yeah. There's some conversation in college football. Like spring football has become very much, I'm not going to say joke, but it's been borderline like, what are we even doing out here?
Yeah.
Because teams are moving. Like you don't even have your team. Some guys come late. You add transfers after. You're trying to like massage guys, not have them leave. Finagle it how you ever want to do. There's talk of maybe going into more of like an NFL OTA structure where you have kind of mini camps for a couple days every month or so.
Yeah.
So it's a long off season, but you just break it up instead of having the 15 practices over a month plus.
Which is stupid.
The only thing the spring games are a big deal in a lot of places. And so getting out of that would be the difficult part. But we've already seen teams tinker with the spring. Like Ole Miss did like a Pro Bowl, setup at their spring game this year. They had Joey Chestnut out there eating hot dogs. So we're already seeing teams starting to do some different stuff. Deion, his first year, they didn't even play. They just had like 7-on-7 and
it was a party. Right.
Yeah. And so what does that look like?
Going by the wayside. Yeah.
There's some talk about maybe changing that setup right now. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do change that. But to your point, like for Kentucky, I think like they just weren't gonna like Stoops really they're not gonna sit there and just hammer each other, I think, in the spring. Because they want people to get healthy. And then you've got guys who get nicked up the year before, like at the end of the season, have to have minor surgeries. And I think they kept a lot of those guys out, and they were probably pretty precautionary with a lot of them.
That's kind of where my head's at. P. Cats fan asks, is Demore Macklin the best receiver on this team? Can't tell because he wasn't at spring practice. He had one of those minor surgeries. Maybe he can become that, but I would say Dane Key is as of the moment. What about you, Luckett? You there?
Yeah, I would agree.
From A Prior 94, he's one of our favorite posters on KS Board. If Luckett could have a football conversation over a beer at Roosters with any college football coach ever, who would it be and why? And I'm adding the caveat: what are you ordering?
I mean, like I'm getting Bud Light drafts.
Yeah, you're getting Bud Light drafts. Yeah, some wings, I'm sure. What sauce we going?
Yeah, see, it just depends on the mood. I've been hot or donkey. Depends where I'm at. So, yeah, it just depends on the mood. One of those two. If I get hot, I'm getting ranch. Donkey, I'm getting blue cheese.
I know who you're going to be getting a beer with, and that's Steve Spurrier. Even though he might be delightful to be around.
Or Mike Leach, because love Mike Leach, but I really don't want to talk about
history.
Medieval times.
Yeah, you get a history lesson.
So this is a really, really good question.
Here's one why you think that, like, it might sound like a little hacky to say, and it also might not be the best answer, but I think this kind of coach really helps. because Coach O would have great storytelling from really great football teams at really great programs. He was a recruiter at Miami when they were the U. He was at USC. He did the LSU team. And he would probably have some like very fun recruiting stories of some very illegal things that they were doing back in the day. But it might not be the best because, after a couple of those cold ones, you just wouldn't know what the hell he's saying. And it's a little bit too hacky and cliche. But I don't think that would be a bad one.
I will say Corso probably has a ton of stories, and he feels like a really great hang.
Yeah.
That would be a good, just from all the years on game day, just those stories in general. Like that, I think he would be a really good one off the top of my head.
That's a good point, yeah. I'm wondering if there's any other, like a random, because I do think it helps when you've been to multiple places. I think that certainly adds to the conversation.
Bielema, if Bielema just for what we would do after Roosters, like we're probably ending up in a casino or something along those lines. He would be up there. So yeah, I think if I had to answer Corso, I think Corso's a good one. I think that one would be. I think there would be a lot of stories there with him.
The Rich Brooks too. Rich Brooks, he enjoys a little brown water. I think he would be fun from a UK perspective. I think he'd be a real good one too. And hell, John Summerall, he's a good hang, I'd imagine. Dude looks like he has a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he would be a stranger to a sports bar atmosphere for sure.
I think Lane Kiffin, like I wanted to say Lane Kiffin too, but he's already an open book. Like he already kind of tells it how it is. But anyway, like see, we need more events where the coaches put their guard down. Like the old Peach Jam Hooters where the basketball coaches get together. We need more of those for college football coaches. Let's open up the pocketbooks. Let's go to the spring meetings, right, down in Destin. Get some of these guys. That feels like the one scenario where those SEC coaches maybe unbutton that top button and get after it a little bit.
Yeah, but you would have to. Destin is interesting because there's definitely a place they probably go to hang out, but it's probably like someone's house. Like someone probably has a house in Destin that they probably a couple of them go to, and if you could get there, that would be the one. Really, you just need to be like being a waiter at like a Jeff Ruby's or any of those establishments throughout the SEC conference. Those throughout the conference or throughout college, those are the ones where, like being a bartender at one of those places. Those are the people that get the really inside stuff.
So I can't find who sent this question. This is a good last serious question first to end on. And it piggybacks off of what Chaz said, where he's like, if they go 9-3, what went right? If they went 6-6, what would have gone wrong? But the question that I got, which position group can raise this team's ceiling the most? I have a hard time finding an answer for that because I think a lot of it just comes down to the passing game for both sides. But I don't know who raises the ceiling more. Having
offensive line.
Okay.
The offensive line is legitimately good. It just makes everything easier on Hamden. It makes it easier on how Kentucky wants to play. Stylistically, complementary football. Makes easier on Vandagriff. Like, we've seen Stoops. Like, he's much better at managing a game when he has a good offensive line and a good defense, which this one can be. To me, it's the offensive line. It just makes everything easier for a bunch of people involved. It makes them more dynamic as an offense. It gives them balance. Like, to me, it's offensive line. If they go 9-3, the offensive line was a surprise to me. Like, I think that's one thing we definitely say. Unless Vandagriff is just like this phenom, which I don't think he will be. I think if we look up, Kentucky's 9-3, and we are like sitting waiting around on the selection show on that Saturday or Sunday, whenever it is, that is a conversation. Like, man, this offensive line was like, we're writing stories about how impressive the offensive line has been this year, and compared to the expectations.
And I was thinking the pass defense, because it was so bad last year. But even when the pass defense has been great, that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't affect your win-loss record as much as having the steady the kick-ass offensive
Yeah.
line, right? Like
Yeah,
that,
but
that raised the ceiling in the past more than the secondary.
yeah, the pieces are in place though for that. Like Hairston's good. You have Waller, you feel good about that. You've got experience in the safety room. You just need more consistent play, and you should have a good pass rush. So like the pieces are there for that to come together and for have a real bounce back. I think there as a team. But the kind of elephant in the room for Kentucky is they want to play a certain style, and to do that, they got to be good on the offensive line. Much better than they've been. And can they win games without it? I mean, I think their biggest issue, Nick, to me, has been in close games. Like what's missing, and to me, it's being able to control the game. How do you control the game? You run the football down the other team's. You run it when they don't want you to run it, right? You get in 2nd and 5, you get in 3rd and 2, and you control the game that way. Kentucky has not been able to do that. And that is the one thing I think has been missing these last 2 years. They did it some when Chris Rodriguez got back in 2022, but mainly that was just because he was just a battering ram. And
Right.
Ray Davis was great in a lot of ways, and they did a good job trying kind of leaning into his strengths as a player, but he was not a just churn out 4 or 5 yards. There was a lot of 1-2 yard gains, and not necessarily was that a lot of his fault. It's just they didn't create much running room blocking wise up front. And that's something they just got to get better at because that allows them to play like how they want to play, which is ball control offense, leaning on you on offense and playing good defense and putting that together, complementary football, shrinking the game, and making it hard on you to turn games into track meets. And that's where Kentucky's just most comfortable is winning games like that.
We'll
And you
see
have
what
to run the
happens.
ball in the SEC. Even Josh Heupel and Lane Kiffin will tell you, like part of the reason they run the scheme they run is it's easier to run the football that way.
Well, we appreciate all of your questions from KS Board, KSR Plus, promo code UK1. 2 months for $1. We really appreciate you all. I mean, this is the most questions we've ever gotten to a mailbag, but we still maybe only got to 50 or 60% of them. So we really appreciate everybody's input on KS Board. We can go back and answer some more of these on the thread that we didn't get to. But we are overtime, and I did want to mention before we go, people forget the Preakness is this weekend. It's a quick turnaround, 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby. And Mystic Dan is trying to keep the hopes of a Triple Crown alive. Kenny McPeak was at the PGA Championship earlier this week, and when Tiger was at the podium, he was taking pictures like he was me, who was kind of freaking out. He's like, "Oh my God, there's Tiger Woods!" It was very funny, very amusing. And Mystic Dan's got a real shot to win because this race stinks. It is a bad Preakness. In some years, you can't really say that because you'll get some of the good Derby horses that carry over, but even some of the guys who pass on the Derby that show up are better. And the best guy who missed it, Bob Bathard's Arkansas Derby winner Muth, who couldn't run in the Derby, he scratched after spiking a fever upon arriving in Baltimore at Pimlico. So Muth was going to be the favorite over Mystic Dan. He's out. I still think in this race, I cheer for Mystic Dan because I want the Belmont to still be alive, and I think Mystic Dan was a deserving Derby winner. That was a great ride. I don't know how great of a horse he is to be able to win on this quick of a turnaround. He can with the field this week where, Mugatu stunk, and it's a great name, but he was like 180 to 1 in the Bluegrass and came in 7th, and now he's running this race. D-Wayne runs his horses to death, so I can't really tell, but I don't think Just Steel is going to be a winner here. Really, I think there's only two.
Sounds like you're just disgusted with the state of events with this year's Preakness.
It's one of those like it too, where if you just open up the program and you look and you're like, man, these horses are good. I could have Mystic Dan wasn't even in my top 5 for the Derby, but he was okay. I could see a scenario where this horse is good enough. I mean, there's some horses in this race where you're just like, oh, this is there's nothing I like when I traditionally handicap a race. But I will say it's not Tuscan Raider. I think it's Tuscan Gold is his name. He's coming out of the 7 post. That horse will be tempting, and it'll probably be a play in an exacta box with Mystic Dan and the horse that I'm going to win bet, and it's Imagination, who ran 2nd by a neck in the Santa Anita Derby. It was Bob Baffert's other horse in this race. I think you're going to get that horse about 5 to 1. I think that's your best bet for a win bet is trying to beat Mystic Dan, because Mystic Dan, that it's at 5-2 right now. It'll be an even shorter price come post time. So I think you try to beat it, but use them in an exacta with those other two horses, and you might be able to cash yourself a ticket. So best of luck betting the Preakness. It's not great, but you know what? The undercard usually produces some fun races. So between that and the PGA, we should have ourselves a fun gambling weekend, Mr. Luckett.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. Well, this has been a fun show. Big thanks to Monticello Bank. Have fun at the PGA Championship this weekend. He's Adam Luckett. I'm Nick Roush. Go Cats and go Kroger.